there are questions that need to be asked right now in Nigeria, and these questions need to be answered. You know, when you were talking, the first thing I did was to go check how many workers are we even really talking about? Because every time the government talks about, especially our state governors, you know, from Anambra to Imo to Kaduna to Katsina to Oyo to Benue, every time the state governors talk about resources, there is something they always say, like people who were born and raised by the same parents. They say after paying salaries, we have little left for developmental projects. They always say that. And so I just checked and I saw 720,000. Without even checking, I've always had this. I wanted to say 5% of, for instance, at the state level. If you want to check, what is the percentage of Indian Anambra who are employed, who are on this, you know, Obiano was called alert governor. And that alert governor was used to sell him as somebody who does well for workers. But then the question will always be, what is the percentage of people living in Anambra State who are on this alert bill? Because they make it seem as if he uses his phone, you know, get that kind of point. So it's never going to be up to 10% of the people who are working in that state who are actually on that bill. And so when you hear a governor now say that the wage bill is too much for him or her to carry, or for him, there is no woman governor, it calls to question that is one. And so this goes for all the 36 states and also at the federal government level, because the question will always be, how many people are we talking about here? That is one. And then the second one we also need to drop on the table and think about, before even talking about what Labour is saying and what is what is the cost of living in Nigeria? How much does a human being need to be alive in Nigeria? How much does a human being need to be alive? Just to be alive. I'm not talking about wearing your kind of expensive clothes, you know, or drinking champagne, okay? Or building a house. I'm just saying to be able to afford a cubicle. Not a 3-bedroom flat, a cubicle. You have a cubicle, you have water, you have power, you have food. Not 3 square meals, but just meals nutritious enough not to take you to the hospital. And God forbid, as we now say in Nigeria, you get sick. How much does it take to treat the least ailment in Nigeria, which I mean, if you have malaria in Nigeria, nobody tells you, oh, sorry, right? It's like normal. How much does it take to treat malaria? All right. How much does it take to prepare children for school in the morning? And by preparation for school in the morning, I mean, you get them biscuits, you get them something to drink, you know, something to, you know, snacks. How much does it take to prepare a meal for a family? No, for a single person, or maybe for you and your wife. Let's spread it for 31 days. Let's spread the food for 31 days. Let's spread water for 31 days. Let's spread, let's put on the mix power, you know, electricity. Let's add in the mix any other utility. Let's take clothes aside. Let's say you decide to go naked. Some people, especially ladies, these days prefer going naked. So let's say, okay, you don't wear clothes. And then when we cost all of that, we will say, this is how much it takes to keep one alive. Let's add transportation. Let's add education.
House rent.
Let's add house rent, because I said you don't thinking of building a house. That is how much it takes to keep one alive. When you cost all of that for one person, it's way above 150,000 naira. If you just cost this causery things, you could. Let's not add government taxes, which government collects forcefully. Let's not add that. Now, when you now want to talk about Nigerian workers being the breadwinners of family. Because when we're talking about Nigerian workers, the people negotiating with the government are Nigerian workers, and they are breadwinners. Children are dependents. You know, if you have a child, the child is dependent on you. All right. So let us now say, whatever figure will come to anybody's mind. So let's look at the least size a family can be, and that's a family of 4. Then you need to multiply every other thing aside from house rent by 4. You need to multiply everything aside from house rent by 4. And then for a family of 4, you can't stay in a cubicle anymore. You need a minimum of room and parlor. Being the family of 4 will live in one room, and then you have a sitting room. That's the minimum. Now put in that the least, because we are working with the least. Minimum wage is working with the least. Put into that the minimum for any of this accommodation in any state. Then you understand, then we begin to, that is where we should begin to have a conversation that is not hanging, a conversation that is realistic. All right. Now there are 2 broad arguments, and we need to I need to respect both arguments. One of the arguments is, can government pay? And then from that argument also comes other things like, okay, is this sustainable? From there also comes such thinking that says, okay, is this a just thing? Is this a realistic figure to, and all of that? The thing is, government has a choice to be government. Government has a choice to do the things government is supposed to do. Government has a choice to do the things that government was elected, created. You know, the whole idea in the first place of men coming together and say, let us have something called government, comes from that idea that says, okay, can we all agree that there are some things bigger than any individual? So let us surrender our rights. Let us surrender our powers. Let us surrender our might. And then let us, you know, as we will say in Nigeria, gather all of these things, these powers and rights, and then invest it in one entity, one giant, so that this giant can deal with anything that is beyond man. Because, I mean, when we look at the history of government, it's from the hunter-gatherer stage of man, where might was right. And so we could all be hunters. And the man who is strongest, I could hunt. And he comes, uses his might, takes my animal away, and I can fight him. Takes this man's wife away, this man can fight him. Takes this man goods away, this man can fight him. And then men came together and said, wait a minute. We need to deal with this kind of, what is it? Impunity. It was actually the Stone Age man who came up with the idea. We have all our sophistication. Even the Stone Age men knew that this kind of impunity should not survive. And so let us give all of these powers to somebody. So as government has evolved over the years, things like education, things like healthcare, things like housing, things like transportation, in all of the advanced economies because the people earn higher, the GDP is higher, and the people have more resources to provide all of these things for themselves. But in all of these developed countries, and one will not find an example of one that it does not happen. Even when our irresponsible leaders argue with the UK and their taxation, you damn hell see what they do with their tax. Education, healthcare, security, transportation, these things are owned and run by government. So why do you pay your tax? Your children enjoy healthcare. You enjoy healthcare. Your children enjoy education. Your mom, your dad who depends on you enjoy subsidies in healthcare, right? Transportation, you take it for granted. The public bus. People survive for 10 years without having a car, and they're doing excellently well, any money, but they just look at their routes. I'm here, okay. The public bus takes care of everything. So the government in Nigeria is absent in all of these things. In all of these things I mentioned, the government of Nigeria is absent. And so, for me and you, working in Sapiencia here, both of us working here, right? You cannot find anywhere where you can go. You will not find it. And you say, oh, this is a decent house for me to live in. And then, like they have in countries like the US, like they have in the UK, like they have in Germany, like they have in Saudi, like they have in, where is this country all of you ladies love to go into? Dubai. Okay, I'm working for Sapiencia.
We ladies.
Yeah, I'm working for Sapiencia. I'm a media practitioner. My organization has an address. Once I can provide the papers that show I'm a staff here and my MD can sign on it, then I can move into one of those decent houses. And then we are going to put pen to paper. And this is how much I'm going to pay mortgage. This is how much I'm going to pay. This is how much is going to be paid every month. And I'm living in a house. And I know at the end of that payment, this is my house. This is where I'm going to raise my family. You can't do that in Nigeria, can you? You can't do that, can you? As somebody working in Sapiencia, as somebody who has a, paid steady employment, I can go look at the kind of car I want for me and my family. And we, you and your wife, you have that conversation. And then we say, okay, we can do this. It's going to be 5%. We're going to be 5% of my salary being taken every month. It's going to be 6%. Okay, we're not going to need this amount of cash. Okay, yeah, we put pen to paper and it happens. That is the meaning of capitalism. That is the meaning of capitalism. You don't run capitalism without capital, without providing capital. That's why they have credit cards. We have ATMs, we call it credit card. No. That's not what a credit card is. No.
We call it debit card.
No, Nigerians call it a credit. No, that's not what a credit card.
No, debit card.
We just hear it from them and then we use it. No, that's not what it is. What it is that credit card, you have not earned any money there. You are not earned any money there. What is there is just a standing. Okay, how much is Geoman good for? Okay, looking at his financial history, okay, maybe it's ₦1 million. And so I have a card. And it has ₦1 million. And I can keep spending it. I go ahead spending it. So if what I think I need to do with ₦1 million is set up a barbing salon, so I increase, I'm going to use my credit card and shop and buy it. And then start generating money and pay back. You don't have that facility in Nigeria, do you? God forbid a worker gets sick from working. God forbid you get sick. You can't walk into the hospital and say, I'm employed by so, treat me. You can't, can you? I can't. Education. Oh, God damn me, education. You want decent education for your children. You're going to have to pay out of your pocket. There is no advanced economy that, you healthcare out of the pocket, education out of the pocket. It doesn't happen. If you now feel you can, yes, they have those private schools. But then the government schools are functioning, are running, are excellent. So when the government, but then let us look at it. All the oil wells in Nigeria, who controls it? Who collects all of the revenues? What the hell do you do with it? I'm talking about the government coming up with the argument of what it can pay. What are you doing with it? The government has not talked about the 90-something% because we have less than 10% of Nigerians on their wage bill. The government is complaining about paying a pittance to about 10%. The government is not even responsible for all of us. Look at what happened with what's it called? With electricity tariff. All right, how much is the monthly bill? NEPA bill, EEDC bill. I mean, in Anambra State, a month. How much is it? Now, it is on this basis that people will talk about. How much does it take to raise decent children in this country? How much does it take to raise a decent child in this country? You know, so it is, look, I don't know how much they should receive. But I think it was the greatest of insults that the 6 governors representing the 6 geopolitical zones were not there. Now that tells you from the beginning how disrespectful this government is. It shows you from the beginning how, you know, how unimportant the citizens of Nigeria are not to those people in government, because those governors have no business not being there in their meeting. They have no business not being there. So it is not about, look, you don't throw about 48,000 naira, 56,000 naira. You don't do that. Look, it is not done. The law says, and you must follow the law. It is the law that makes them governors. It is the law that makes you a president. It is the law that sets up INEC. It is the law that says we're going to have election in 4 years. It is the law that sets up your office. And so they do not have any right whatsoever to get into office and then decide not to govern by the law. So what does the law say? The law says you're going to set up a tripartite committee. You've set it up. For heaven's sake, nobody who is in that tripartite committee has any right not to be in that meeting. That's the first one. The second one is, it is collective bargaining. The International Labour Organization Convention number 98 says it is collective bargaining. The 3 of them are going to bargain. The federal government has no look, it has no right whatsoever. Just like I do not have the right for the federal government to set up an agency and the agency makes a law and I disobey it. I don't have that right. So the federal government has no right to say, I'm going to pay you this. No, we are going to bargain. The federal, that was something Labour said. And I challenge the federal government or the state governors to do that. Labour has presented its breakdown of how it arrived at those figures to Nigerians. I have seen it. Every Nigerian has seen it. For instance, on feeding, for a family of 6, they put 9,000 naira. For heaven's sake, that it is more. A family of 6, 9,000 naira a day, that is more. It's more than that. I challenge anybody to come up with any contrary fact. A family of 6 cannot feed on 9,000 naira a day. You can't perform that miracle. All right? So they put 9,000 naira. They put education. They put, I think, healthcare for 50,000 naira. I challenge anybody. 50,000 naira, you are not sick. If you spend 50,000 naira in a hospital, you are not sick. I know exactly what I'm saying. All right, now, they put transportation. They put house rent. Look, they've laid it on the table. What I expect the government to do, they put power. They put, whatever you're using. It could be, they said gas or kerosene. They fix all of these things and they come up with that amount. What I expect the government to do is to tell us. Because, it is called public office because it is not your father's office. That is why it's called public office. It's not your father's office. And so when you're running an office that is not your father's office, you must be transparent. It's not mature in Chokwan and you're transparent. Or you are transparent, or you come up and you say something and then people clap you that you're transparent. That's idiotic. You are mandated to be transparent. And what I expect the federal government, what the federal government must do is to say, no. Man shall not live by bread alone. Let us cancel 9,000 naira. I mean, it makes sense. Man shall not live by bread alone. The Bible agrees with you. So, okay, no, man shall not live by bread alone. Let's 9,000 naira, strike it off. Transportation. Oh no, transportation. You can walk. You can walk. Walking is healthy. And the health professionals will agree with you. And then you say, no, let us take transportation off. And then you look at education. You say, no, wait a minute. Why are you going to school? School is a scam. And then you take it off. House rent, accommodation. You say no. The Bible wrote in chapter that God will provide nest over you if He provides for the birds of the air. Let's take this off. This one is expensive. Healthcare. I challenge the government to do that. Why are you throwing money like you're talking to dogs? This is exactly what they do. This is exactly what they do. 58,000 naira take. Family of 6. Are you mad?
You say
how much do they spend in 54. Hotels for a day?
It's 54. You're calling it 58.
Okay, 54. Now, how much do they spend in hotels for a night? How much does a governor spend on hotels for a night? How much do they spend on travels
We're talking about sustainability. The thing is that
They should sustainability. I agree, but then you can't be collecting all the oil money accruing to me, because the oil in Nigeria is for all of us, and that is what it's called.
Have you ever wondered if the ministers, the House of Reps, the governors, have you ever like wondered if their salaries are being owed? Like
I can't go that far.
Okay.
I don't care. I don't care if it's being owed or not. Look, I don't care. What I know is every worker deserves his wage. That's what I know. What I also know is that countries like Saudi Arabia that have oil,
definitely,
I see what they do for their citizens. I see all of the grants. I see what they do with education. If you're working, you don't pay for education. You don't pay for healthcare. I see what they do. I see what they do for their citizens. I look at countries like the UK. Yes, you're going to work, but then if you have a work, you're going to meet your basics. I look at countries like Dubai. They have oil. I look at what they do. Look at Iran. Look at Iran. Look at what Iran is doing. That even Israel, that's on that talk. Even Israel knows you can't attack that country anyhow. This is not Hamas we're dealing with here. So look, well, CDWR has called for mass action. I know it's not going to happen. Nigerians pride themselves with being resilient. We take anything. I mean, look, you know how stupid it has gotten. That a set of people pride themselves that we can survive anything. So I think Nigerians are going to survive this one. But the government has no excuse on earth to do that. You can't be in charge of all of my resources. Open up the books and let's see how much you're making. How sustainable? How sustainable is it? The lifestyle they are how sustainable is it that people are having billions and trillions and they've never invested in anything? How sustainable is it that we're having people laundering money around?
Buying cars.
How sustainable it is, the lifestyle of their wives.
And their girlfriends.
And I don't know if they have girlfriends, but of their wives and all of the people around them, at least we see those ones. We see those ones. How sustainable is that lifestyle? How sustainable is it that each time any of them get sick, they fly out?
Outside the country.
How sustainable is it? So what's this argument about sustainability? How sustainable is first class flight, a jet? How sustainable is a private jet for a public official? What sustainability? These aircrafts, we know, you spend stupendous amount of money on them when they are not even flying.
$.
When they are not flying. How sustainable is that? How sustainable is that? How sustainable is it that all the best hotels in Abuja, some of them as much as millions, over ₦1 million a night, 2 million naira a night, are being patronized by people in public office? How sustainable is that? What the heck is this talk about sustainability? What the heck is this talk about sustainability? Where does it even come from?
Because the reason why I keep saying it is because I know it's going to happen. Once they decide to have that 615,000 naira, obviously they are still going to be owing salaries. This is Nigeria.
A man who owes salaries, when you tell him to pay 30,000 naira. The problem I have in Nigeria is that, it's called Stockholm Syndrome. And it's been conducted all over the world. People get to a point, they start falling in love and making excuses for their oppressors.
And mind you, sorry, before you say something, mind you that once they do that, some states are not going to comply because, some states are still paying that 18,000 naira minimum wage.
Well, I've made my case. The government has made its case. Labour has made its case. I can't argue it better than the bereaved. All right. One other thing that happened is actually the governors, and I think it's tied to this.